Welcome and thank you for joining us for Brain Health Begins in the Kitchen Part 1. My name is Valerie Miles and I'm the Director of Dining and Head Chef at the Kensington Reston, a Kensington Senior Living's community offering assisted living in 2 levels of memory care in Reston, Virginia. Kensington Senior Living has 7 unique communities, 2 in Virginia, 1 in Maryland, 1 in New York, and 3 in California. Our promise is to love and care for your family as we do our own. The dining experience in our communities is not only a taste sensation, but it's also a special occasion every time residents and their guests gather. With 30 years of culinary experience, one of my passions is to showcase families' recipes and traditions on our daily menus. Table time togetherness is a meaningful opportunity for residents and their families to slow down, share laughs, strengthen bonds, and make memories. Our team of talented and professionally trained chefs create meals that are flavorful, nutritious, and presented beautifully. We are also delighted that you are taking the time to enjoy this evening's event with Chef Annie Fenn of Brain Health Kitchen. If you are new to the Zoom platform, this presentation is in webinar format. This means your cameras and microphones will remain off and muted throughout the presentation. We will be answering questions that were previously submitted at the time of registration, but we will also answer additional questions submitted in the Q&A if time permits. But before we get cooking, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Alexander Ramsey, Director of Sales and Marketing.
Thank you, Val. I would like to introduce our special guest this evening, Dr. Annie Fenn, who is a physician, chef, and founder of the Brain Health Kitchen, the only culinary school of its kind focused specifically on fending off age-related cognitive decline. She teaches the Brain Health Kitchen method of cooking throughout the US and abroad, with an emphasis on neuroprotective ingredients and brain health-friendly food and cooking techniques. Her mission is to help you take care of your brain while still eating delicious food. We would like to welcome Annie Fenn.
So Alex and everyone who's on this Zoom call tonight, I'm gonna have to get back to the kitchen. We're serving our residents tonight some red snapper with salsa verde, roasted potatoes, and fresh asparagus. So enjoy, and Annie, it was nice to meet you.
That sounds amazing.
I'm ready to eat.
Yeah,
I'll come over there for dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's really, really a pleasure to be here at Kensington Senior Living. And if you're registered here, then you probably have the handout that I sent you. And I included a lot of information in the handout because one of my missions, besides making delicious food to take care of your brain, is to empower you with the knowledge that you need to really nurture your brain and slow down the rate of age-related cognitive decline, which we all have the power to do. So there's a lot of information in your packet. I'm going to break it down as we go through everything. Just as an overview today, we're going to talk about my top 5 ways to start eating for better brain health, things that you can do right away. I'm going to talk about the 5 foods groups that I really want you to avoid. You probably saw the news a few weeks ago about a study that came out about how ultra-processed foods can actually accelerate the aging of your brain. And accelerated brain aging, that's what we call in the medical world as, getting you closer to dementia. And so we're going to talk about those ultra-processed foods that I really don't want you to have around because they're designed to be very tempting and make people eat too much of them. And then we're going to dive into some pantry staples that you can cook along with me. And Susan Evans from Kensington is going to join me in the kitchen as we cook together. And then I'm going to give you some homework because, going to a talk or listening to a lecture is really great. But if you don't really try to take some of the things that you learned today into the kitchen and implement them into your life, then it's not going to have the same kind of impact. So I'm big on takeaways and homework, and you'll find that is in your packet too. But we'll go over all of that. So first, I want to talk to you about brain healthy food. And, I started the Brain Health Kitchen in 2015 when my mother was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which I'm sure a lot of you know as the earliest stage of Alzheimer's disease. So that was in 2015. And that's when I took a deep dive into all the science behind, what are the foods that could help protect my mother's brain and keep her from declining more rapidly. And I'm happy to say that 7 years later, she still lives at home. My brother is taking care of her. I have another brother and myself, we do what we can. But one of the first things we did was we completely changed her diet. Besides getting rid of the ultra-processed foods, I leaned on the MIND diet study, which had just come out that year, the MIND diet study out of Rush University. And they showed 10 brain healthy food groups that are most proven to slow down cognitive decline. And there have been many, many studies since the MIND diet study came out showing that this is a proven strategy for people who have very early dementia, maybe not later dementia, that has not been shown yet, but in the earliest stages, and for those of us who don't have dementia at all, it can reduce the risk of getting Alzheimer's by as much as 53%, which is truly, truly remarkable. We don't have a drug, we don't have an intervention or anything that you can take that would reduce your risk of Alzheimer's by 53%. So that's why the MIND diet study was so powerful. And I still draw on that work for a lot of the nutrition recommendations that I have in my classes. So to make it really easy, you're going to read a lot and hear a lot about, what are the best foods for your brain. It's all over the internet. It's really trendy now, which is good. When I started talking about eating to prevent dementia in 2015, it was kind of a crazy topic, especially amongst physicians. But it's becoming much more standard, which is amazing. There's a lot more awareness. But I want you to be able to cut through a lot of the noise that you might read about, because a lot of these are just headlines and not super, super accurate. So stick with the most science-based proven foods. And you'll see in my handout that the very first thing that I have in there is that I want you to eat these 5 foods every day: berries, leafy greens, vegetables, whole grains, and nuts. Those 5 foods every day. It's not controversial whatsoever in whatever kind of dietary pattern you follow, whether it's whole food, plant-based, or vegan, or Mediterranean, or flexitarian, whatever. Everyone agrees that these 5 food groups can slow down the aging of your brain. And that's because they have a special combination of antioxidants and fiber and certain brain health nutrients and brain-friendly fats. So for example, how did I do today? For breakfast, I had a bowl of muesli, and I topped it with some berries. It's summer where I am, and so there's a lot of berries that I have around the house from farmers markets. I poured some nut milk, some cashew milk that I'd made earlier over that. And then for lunch, I had a vegetarian lasagna that I have been working on as a recipe for the website. It's made with cashew cream, which I'm going to show you how to make, which is a nut-based cream. So I got my nuts in there. There's a whole bunch of spinach in it. There's a big serving of leeks and mushrooms, which was my vegetable serving. So I basically had gotten all of those 5 groups already in just 2 simple meals. So that's something I really want you to strive for. Eat those every day. Now, the second thing is I want you to pay attention to cooking techniques. It's very important to know what kind of foods to choose, obviously. And we'll talk about organic versus not organic and other different details about the foods. But it's also really important to cook the foods properly. And I like to describe this as gentle cooking. So gentle cooking means your mantra is low and slow. You're not going to sear anything at a high heat. You're not going to grill anything directly over a flame. You're not going to fry anything in a big pot of oil. And the reason for this is that not only does it damage some of the delicate brain-friendly fats in the food and also some of the nutrients, is that it creates inflammatory particles in the food. They're basically created by the combination of heat when it's applied to protein, especially in the presence of sugar. So if you think about a barbecued piece of chicken, and I'm really sorry if that's one of your favorite foods, but it's really common in this country to eat a lot of barbecued chicken in the summer, but you've got a protein and you slather it with a sugary sauce and then you put it on a hot grill. And that is a recipe for advanced glycation end products, which are these inflammatory particles, which have been linked to Alzheimer's. They actually accumulate in the brain cells of people with dementia and Alzheimer's. So I want you to eliminate and try to prevent creating these things in your food. So the mantra, like I said, is low and slow. That means lots of braising, lots of roasting in the oven, lots of cooking with indirect heat on the grill, things like that. We can talk about that later. I want you to cook gently with olive oil. We can talk about that. I want you to avoid added sugar. And when you're looking for foods at the grocery store, I want you to remember a little mnemonic that I came up with called the 4 F's of brain healthy food. So if you're wondering if this food, like a lemon, is this a brain healthy food? Well, a brain healthy food will have at least 2 of the 4 F's. Number 1, brain friendly fats. These are monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. You don't have to remember those words. They're really long, but you do have to remember that you want to avoid saturated fats and man-made fats like trans fats. And that's what you find a lot in a lot of processed foods. So the healthy fats are the things you find in nuts and olive oil and seeds and fish and seafood, avocados, things like that. Number 2, does it have flavonoids? Well, it's easy to tell the food has flavonoids. Flavonoids are what make plant foods colorful. So this lemon is bursting with flavonoids. It doesn't really have any fat, but it's bursting with flavonoids. It's also bursting with my 3rd F, which is fiber. And fiber is incredibly important in cooking for brain health. And there are a lot of reasons for that we can go into, but the primary one is that it helps you develop a healthy gut microbiome, which in turn helps you cultivate brain health in many, many ways. And then the 4th F is fit. You know, everyone eats a different way. We have all sorts of cultural and ethnic backgrounds coming into the way we eat. You know, I eat a lot from my heritage growing up in a Sicilian American family. So I'm always trying to draw from those memories, which just make me feel, you know, make me fit into my place in the world, and also connects me with my ancestors and my family, even if I can't be with them. And we all have, you know, different heritages that we draw upon. And so it's not about, you know, trying to fit into, say, a Mediterranean diet profile. If your family eats Mexican American, or if your family eats African American, or Latin American or Asian American. It's about drawing on your cultural heritage and finding a way to make the brain healthiest meals you can based on that. I'm really big on everyone building their own brain health pyramid. And the base of that is really the food that you love to eat, that you don't mind cooking, that you find delicious, that connects you with your people. That's what the 4th F is, fit. So we've got brain friendly fats, flavonoids, fiber, and fit. So this lemon, you know, this is 2 of the 4 F's for me. It's got flavonoids, it's got fiber. Oh, it's the 3rd one too, fit. Because in the Mediterranean tradition, where my family comes from, Sicily, cooking with lemons, especially the whole lemon, is really, really popular and traditional. It makes food especially delicious. Now I want to get started cooking because I have a bunch of pantry staples I want to show you. So I'm going to bring in Susan Evans from Kensington Senior Living. And Susan, are you there? Hi. I think you need to unmute.
Thank you for that. This
Hi.
is but I have my Kensington apron, and I also have my Brain Health Kitchen apron. So thank you. And I am a huge fan of Annie's. And I must say a quick hello. And I'm sorry, Steve Gurney, the founder of Positive Aging, was supposed to join us today. And unfortunately, he had some technical problems that just couldn't be fixed in time. But we will miss him. And we thank him for his relationship and his support. And he'll join us on the 8th of September. So you can all meet him then. But really, my story is similar to Annie's. My father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 11 years ago, and it really turned my life upside down. And as Annie had a restart and started Brain Health Kitchen, I really dedicated my life to educate people about Alzheimer's, because I just felt there was not enough information out there. And certainly 11 years ago, there wasn't, but I feel like we've made so much progress in that realm. But we kept my dad at home. I wanted to keep him at home forever, but it just became too much on my mother, and I didn't want to lose both my parents to Alzheimer's disease. And so my relationship with Kensington Senior Living is my father lived there for almost 7 years. And the relationship that he had with Chef Tony and the food that Kensington offers their residents is amazing and phenomenal. And so I have to thank all the chefs at Kensington, and thank you, Val, for doing the introduction. But I am just super excited about being here today. We have tons of questions that came in from our audience. And so I think I'm ready, but let's go ahead, Annie. I'll give it to you.
Okay. So keep me on time here because we've got 5 recipes to go through, and we're going to go through them pretty quickly. But if you look in your handout, you'll have detailed instructions. I have a second camera going here, as you can see, just so you can see the process a little bit more. So the first thing we're going to make is preserved lemons. And why are we preserving lemons of all things with salt? Well, preserved lemons are a lacto-fermented food. And one of your homework items for this course is to include a lacto-fermented food in your diet every day. And this is based on lots of recent science that's been coming out about how lacto-fermented foods like kimchi, like fermented vegetables, such as sauerkraut, like ingredients like miso paste, gochujang, preserved lemons, all of those things are fermented foods, kefir, yogurt. All of these are very beneficial for your gut microbiome. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're going to get all the flavonoids possible out of a lemon by making it so that we can eat the peel. We can eat the whole thing, okay? And it's going to include a lot of fiber as well, okay? So we're going to hit gut health and brain health both with this recipe. And all you need to do is get your lemons really clean. I scrubbed mine over by the kitchen sink earlier. And I usually choose organic lemons for this because we're going to be eating the peel once they're all, they've been fermented. But you don't have to use organic lemons for the ones that you juice. You can save a little bit money by just buying conventional lemons for that. And what we'll do is cut the lemons in half. It's good to have a sharp knife. It's actually a lot safer to have a sharp knife than when it's not so sharp. So I've got my lemon like this in half, and then we're going to cut it almost all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so it looks a little bit like a flower. Okay, but I left that stem end intact. And it's not crucial. What if you cut through it? I did that when I was prepping. What if you cut all the way through it? It's not a big deal. You're still gonna salt and just stuff the lemons in there. Not a big deal. And then this is the part that might get a little tricky for people. You're gonna cut around the flesh, in between the flesh and the peel. Okay, so that means you can open up the lemon like a flower. And that's just so you can pack the salt in there. That's all that's really for. Okay. Yeah, how's it going over in your kitchen, Susan?
Oh, it's going great. No, it's going very well. Very well.
Susan is a big fan of preserved lemons. I know you cook with them and that you use them in a bunch of my recipes.
I love preserved lemons, and they're really good. And I'm using the bad word here, but they're really good barbecued. But we could do something besides barbecue them, because you can literally just put them on a hot stove with nothing else in it because it's got everything in there, and use it to squeeze the juice on different prepared foods, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I do that with regular lemons that are not preserved, and I do that all the time. I put my lemons on the grill. Now, the thing about grilling, I may have upset some people about my comments. I always do when I'm talking about grilling. But foods that are animal products like steak and chicken, things like that, they rack up those inflammatory particles a lot more than vegetables and fruits. So you can kind of, if you really like grill marks on your food, if you like crispy things off the grill, you can do that with fruits and vegetables. Because fruits and vegetables are very low in these inflammatory particles.
So we actually invested in a pizza oven.
Oh,
is
nice.
barbecuing the same? So you can do everything in a pizza oven. We've done fish, we've done vegetables, we've done all different types of proteins. It's wonderful because it heats up so fast. Is that the same harm that a barbecue causes?
Not necessarily. It's not exactly direct heat. It's hot, but it's not direct heat.
Right. Okay. Good.
The flame is not as close. Okay, so I've got my clean mason jar. And I just put these in the dishwasher, the top shelf of the dishwasher. That's all I do to sterilize. I don't do anything special. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and pack these with salt. Now in your recipe, it says about a teaspoon per lemon half, but I tend to do these very quickly. I don't really measure. I just want to that's about a teaspoon. I just want to put enough salt in between all sides of the lemon piece so that it will be properly preserved. Now what happens over time, and it takes about 3 weeks for these lemons to be ready to cook with. What happens over time is that the peel gets really mellow. So instead of like eating a tart lemon, raw lemon, it'd be like, ooh, that's super tart. It actually gets mellow and delicious, and it tastes more like floral than citrus. So it develops a really interesting flavor that I think is a good additive to your foods. And the other thing that happens is that the salt sort of cures the lemon. And so when you use these lemons, you can wash them under the sink, because I don't want you to have too much excess salt in your diet. But the peel actually becomes something salty to season your food with without added salt. Does that make
So
sense?
how would you do that? Would you grate that, or would you use a zester, or would you just chop it up?
No, I just chop it up. I would. I'll show you. I have some that I've been working on for a while that I think I put up in the spring, the last time we had lemon season around here. And I'll show you how I prep it. But there's 2 ways you can use it. You can either use it without rinsing it if you want to reduce the sodium in your diet, which a lot of people do need to watch, especially if your doctor has mentioned that to you. Or you can just chop up the whole thing if you want to add a little bit of salt. But it's kind of like the lemon is the salty aspect of the dish.
Right.
So, but it
replaces
not high in sodium.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes it really good. So I've got all my lemons in here. And now they're basically going to be curing in their own juice. Okay. Now I make these a lot for Christmas presents, holiday presents. I tend to put up, I don't know how many jars, around Thanksgiving week. And then they're perfect for giving out a month later. That's one thing I do a lot with these. I've got all my friends turned on to that.
You can do 10. I mean, it's just an assembly line. I would agree.
Just assembly. Yeah. If my kids are home, I really like to engage them as kitchen prep, but usually it's just me. Okay. So what you're going to do is I'm packing these lemons in there. You want to pack as many lemons as possible into your jar. Now these ones that I messed up because I cut all the way through, I'm still going to use that. And you don't need to worry about getting rid of the seeds. The seeds of a lemon actually release lemon oil, which is part of the magic of the flavor and the fermentation process for these. So you don't really need to throw out any part of the lemon. You're using the entire thing. Okay.
Do I get credit if I eat them for my nuts every day?
For your nuts?
Yeah.
Okay, and now I've got some lemon juice. And like I said, I used conventional lemons for the juice just because lemons where I live are, the organic ones are about twice as much as the conventional ones. So I was just saving a little money at the grocery store. Things are expensive these days. So this was all the juice from about 6 lemons. Now, if your lemons are rock hard and you're trying to juice them, you can put them in the microwave for 15 seconds and soften them up and then cut them and juice them. Okay. And that works really well. And I just use a handheld juicer. I know there's lots of fancy ones you can use, but I just use one of these. I can usually get oh yeah, those are great too. I can usually get all the juice out of it. And then it also provides a little bit of an upper body workout, especially when you're putting up 10 jars.
Yeah, I love this. And, they try to sell them, get one for limes, one for lemons. It works for both. You just need one.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just filling this up, trying to get all the juice in there. Sometimes it takes a while to trickle down. Don't worry about crushing them if you squeeze hard. So, there you have it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm going to label these. They're really pretty. They make very pretty gifts. I'm going to put a label with the date on it because I always think I'm going to remember every single thing I do in the kitchen. But then, of course, my fridge will be full of jars that I don't know what they are. And so I'll go ahead and do that. And let me show you what it looks like when they're done.
So I actually bought these and they came with these cute little labels with a white pen. So you can just label it and put the date.
I like those a lot. I use a Sharpie, but I also like that method a lot. Now here's a jar that I put up. Can't really read so there goes the Sharpie method. I can't really read the date, but I think it was in March was the last time I put up a bunch. And when you're using your preserved lemons, you just don't want to put your fingers in the jar, right? Because you want to keep this as sterile of an environment as possible. And these will last a year or more, as long as they're covered with lemon juice. Okay? That's a key thing. And they get really soft. I can grab one for you. They get really super soft, and you can just use the peel and slice it into slivers. I do that a lot and put it on top of my fish. If I'm making Caesar salad dressing, I might just take, a piece like about this big and throw it in the blender with my Caesar salad dressing.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I make lots of sauces that way. I make a cashew cream with this. We're going to do that in the next class. We're going to make a preserved lemon cashew cream as a dipping sauce for crispy artichokes. So there's all sorts of things you can do with them. You can keep the pulp and add it to your dish. You can throw it away. You can rinse these or use them as is. They're super versatile. So we'll go into that a little bit more next time when we're actually cooking with them. Now you're just going to leave these on your kitchen counter for 3 days. It's not a bad idea a couple times a day when you walk past them, just to agitate it, just to make sure that everything's covered in salt and juice. And then after 3 days, let's go ahead and put them in your fridge. And don't forget about them. You'll bring them back out in like 3 to 4 weeks. They'll be perfect. So that is preserved lemons. It only takes about 5 minutes, really, when you're not talking as much as we are, to put up a whole batch. And so it's a really, really fun, easy thing to do.
I think your idea about making a bunch of those as hostess gifts, or to take to someone that's, not feeling well, or someone that needs just a little smiley face in their day, it's a great idea.
Oh, exactly. And you can also buy them at the grocery store. Here's one. When I run out, sometimes I buy this brand, Moroccan preserved lemons. These are little tiny lemons. They're kind of different. And then sometimes I like to have fun and preserve other things. These are actually kumquats that I preserved last winter.
Oh, yum.
Yeah, so these should be really ready to go. And I haven't really figured out what to do with these yet, but I think they'd be really good in a fish dish or a chicken dish. They might even be good in a drink or a cocktail of some sort. So these are kumquats. If you have a windfall of kumquats, you could certainly consider that. I've also preserved limes for Moroccan food, which is unbelievable, flavorful. So that's preserved lemons, and we're doing nut milk next. Is that right, Susan?
Yep.
All right.
Doing nut milk. And while you're getting ready for that, I have to share with everyone, you need to go on Brain Health Kitchen's website. I have made so many dishes from Annie's recipes, and I made one the other night. I was a little nervous about it, but I decided to get over my fear. This crispy cauliflower tacos, and I am telling you, it was the most flavorful thing. And what I love about your recipes is you have all these sauces that are super easy to make. I mean, it's literally like a blender, and you throw some stuff in there and you have a great sauce, like the Harissa sauce that we're going to make today, and this creamy red pepper sauce. I mean, it's like a can of red peppers and nut milk. I can't even remember what else is in it, but it's so easy and so flavorful.
Oh, I'm so glad you like that one. I tried really hard to make the recipes easy. They might have some ingredients that you're not familiar with, but once you have them, then you can make lots of things out of them. And I try to make every recipe do like double, triple duty. Like that Harissa yogurt sauce that we're going to make, you can use that with so many different meals. And it keeps in the fridge for a long time too. So
I actually put it on grain toast, and it's delicious.
Oh, fantastic. So you might be wondering, why are we making nut milk from scratch? Can't you just buy that at the grocery store? Isn't it just like really easy to buy a carton of almond milk? Or why do you need to do a plant-based milk at all? Well, there's a couple of reasons why I want you to swap out dairy sometimes for more plant-based milk. And the reason is that, dairy products are one of the biggest reasons that Americans consume a lot of saturated fat. And the problem with dairy milk, it's not so much that it's a bad food. I don't think it's a bad food at all. But when you take the fat out of dairy, let's say you take your whole milk and turn it into skim milk or non-fat milk, then you also take out a lot of the vitamins. And so the food companies put the vitamins back in, they fortify it, but they don't get absorbed very well in the absence of that fat. So it's this catch-22 where you've got like dairy milk, it doesn't have the fat, so you're thinking you're doing a really good thing for your heart and your brain, but it doesn't, you're not really absorbing the vitamins. So I'm just not a fan of dairy milks. And we have so many plant-based milks now that are available to us. And you can buy them at the store by all means. I'm going to show you how easy it is to make it. And it's not even the same thing. When you make fresh nut milk at home, it's so delicious. It's so fresh. You can cook with it. You can drink it. You can make lattes out of it. It's really kind of a treat. And I usually make about, a quart every 3 or 4 days. And that's the milk that we use for all of our cooking and everything else. So the first thing you need to do, we're going to start with the easiest nut milk to make, which is cashew milk, because you don't have to strain the cashews, the cashew milk or anything like that. Like almonds have a hard shell, so you have to actually put them through a nut milk bag to strain it. But you don't have to do that at all. I hear my dog Olive Oil talking to me, so I'm going to give her one. Libby, sit. Sit. Okay.
Annie, you have to share with everyone where you live.
Oh, I live in Jackson, Wyoming. Yeah, I've been here for 25 years. I've been here for a long time.
I saw on your Instagram today, everyone should follow Brain Health Kitchen, and everyone should also follow Kensington Senior Living. We have a dynamic digital team that's doing some fun stuff, but I saw in your post today that the elks are coming out for fall.
Yeah, the elk migration is starting, and they're actually starting to bugle, which is their mating ritual. It's a little early, end of August, but we'll take it. We've had some chilly weather, which has been really nice. So yeah,
fun.
The last time I gave a class this time of year, I had a herd of elk come up onto my front deck outside the kitchen. So if I see any, I'll let you guys know, okay?
Oh, would you just move the camera? We can have a little shot there.
So what I have here is a 1.5 cups of raw cashews, unsalted, not roasted. And I've been soaking them for a couple hours, just while I was getting ready for you all. So I'm going to go ahead and drain this. And I'm going to put it into my blender. Now you need a fairly decent blender for this. You don't need a top of the line blender. This is a Vitamix. It's very powerful, but I've also made nut milk in a NutriBullet or something like that as well. Now you've got your soaked nuts, so they're nice and soft, so they'll blend up. We're going to add some water to that, about 4 cups. And then I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You don't have to put salt in it if you're on a low sodium diet, by all means. You can skip that part. I'm going to make this for drinking, like for making lattes and just drinking and putting on my oatmeal. So I'm going to add some vanilla. I'm going to make it sort of a vanilla cashew milk. And then I'm just going to sweeten it naturally. And you can do that a couple ways. I like to use medjool dates. They're very soft. They blend up really well. They have a ton of fiber. You just have to remember to take the pit out. And I'm just going to put that in there, and that's going to be basically all the sweetener that I need. Now, when you buy plant milk at the grocery store, you definitely want to take a close look at the label and make sure there aren't any added sugars or any added ingredients that you don't want in there. Okay.
Which brings me to a question from our audience, and that is, how damaging is sugar for dementia patients?
That's a really good question. I'm going to mute myself for a second because this is going to be super loud. Okay, you guys? Okay.
While Annie's muted and I'm not, I invite everyone to please use the Q&A function if you have any questions for Annie. We have a bunch of questions here from registration, but I encourage you, we would love your questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So that always used to scare my puppy, but now she's gotten kind of used to it. So that's it. The milk is done. I don't need to strain it. I don't need to do anything with it. smells delicious. It smells like fresh nuts and vanilla and, you know, all these yummy things. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my jar. Now you're going to keep this in the refrigerator. It will keep for about 4 days. It will separate. You know, when you buy milk at the grocery store that's plant milk, there's all these ingredients in it to make it look more like milk, like cow's milk. They're binders and things like that. And they're actually not very good for you, we're finding. It may disrupt your gut microbiota. So I want you to buy milk, plant-based milk that doesn't have binders or things in it. You just want to see nuts, water, maybe salt. Is all the ingredients you need, okay? But that does mean that when you have it at home, it's going to separate. And so when you take it out of the fridge in a couple days, you're going to want to shake it really vigorously, okay? And you may not be used to the way it looks, but it's totally fine.
And we actually have a question. Why don't you use the water that the cashews were soaked in, or could you?
You know, you can do that, and some people do that. One of the ideas about soaking nuts is that it makes some of the nutrients more available to your body if you do that. I mostly like to throw away the water because I'm not always buying my cashews organic. Sometimes they are conventional. Organic cashews are actually really expensive. And so are organic almonds and walnuts and everything else. I try to buy organic food as much as possible, but it's not always a given. I can't get it, or the price might be something I don't want to spend. So by soaking them, it removes the impurities. And by draining them, I'm washing out whatever kind of contaminants or pesticides might be coming along for the ride. Okay, it's a really good question.
And they're just raw cashews, not salted, not roasted, not anything, just raw.
Exactly. You can make a roasted cashew milk, which is also really delicious, but I prefer that you roast the cashews yourself because roasting nuts at a factory cranks up inflammatory particles.
Sure. And I will remind our audience that following today's webinar, you will be receiving an email from Kensington that will give you all these recipes again, they will give you links, how to get a hold of Annie Fenn, how to follow her on Brain Health Kitchen. And most exciting, it's going to give you a sneak peek and a link to pre-order her cookbook that's coming out January?
In January. Yeah, January 3rd. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really excited about it.
You've been working on that for years, because when I first met you over 3 years ago, I think you were working on it then. So I'm so excited about it.
It's a very long project. Yeah. And
there's something about a cookbook, having a cookbook and not being online and not cooking from your phone. I just love being with a cookbook.
I love having a book too. So I wanted to answer your question about sugar and dementia.
Okay.
Why is sugar bad for the brain, basically, right? Sugar, just like we're talking about these inflammatory particles that you create when you cook over high heat, and when you cook meat in combination with sugar, sugar is kind of like an inflammatory product itself. If you bombard your body with sugar in your foods, then your body stops responding to it by not producing enough insulin. So this is called insulin resistance. So it's like too much sugar on a daily basis or many times a day. Like, let's say you put sugar in your coffee in the morning, and then you put maple syrup on your oatmeal, and then you have a cookie at 11 o'clock, and then you have like a soda pop in the afternoon, or you have some tea and you put lots of honey in it. Like, all of these things are going to spike your blood sugar and result in a spike in insulin. Now, doing that, days over years is what causes your insulin receptors to shut down, and your brain becomes insulin resistant too. And this is what happens. It's part of the process of Alzheimer's. It's not the entire process, but much of it is insulin resistance that develops over years. So looking at your blood sugar results when you go to the doctor is really important. Keeping your fasting blood sugar low. If you have diabetes, managing and treating it, as carefully as you can is important. But that's why I don't use any added sugar at all in the Brain Health Kitchen. I do use dates. I use honey sometimes. I use maple syrup. I do like things that are sweet. I make baked goods all the time, but always with fiber. Okay. So if a food has a lot of fiber in it, let's say you make a blueberry muffin, and I'm putting some sugar in the batter. But if I also have bananas in there, and I have whole grain flour, and I also have nuts, all of these are fiber-rich foods that will slow down the absorption, whatever sugar is going along, if that makes sense.
Yes, I was just going to ask, is there anything we can do or eat that will reduce our body's ability to not produce too much sugar?
Well, I think it starts with looking at labels and not consuming foods that have added sugar, number one. That's mostly the processed and ultra processed foods. And then just being really careful in your kitchen. Like I don't cook with white sugar anymore. I don't really I use coconut palm sugar sometimes, but you can usually bake with a fraction of what a recipe calls for. So I think it's about being really conscious of the sugar that you consume and the types of sugar, always with fiber. And of course, if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, you want to be super strict about that as well.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's a whole other topic, and it's a fantastic question. So I'm going to show you how we make cashew cream. It's the exact same process as cashew milk. However, we're just going to use less water. And I have when I was testing for my cookbook, I was making a lot of nut-based sauces because I don't use hardly any dairy. I use some cheese, but not that many dairy products in my cooking and my recipes. And so I was making cashew cream all the time, and I was always waiting for my nuts to soak. So I came up with a quick method that I call almost instant cashew cream. And here's what you do. You take a pot of water, 1.5 cups of raw cashews, and you cover it with water, and then you bring that to a boil, okay? And then you turn the heat off once it boils, cover it, and then just let it sit. Minimum of 15 minutes. You can let it sit longer, like mine's been sitting out for, a half hour or so. And then we're going to drain that off. Like I said, I like to drain it off because of impurities and, other reasons. It also gets a little milky, and, your cashew cream is going to be kind of look like whipped cream. And if you use that water, it's not going to look very attractive. So there you go. I didn't wait a couple hours to soak my nuts. I just went and did it the down and dirty quick way. And then
I have a quick question for you. Is it easy to grow sprouts at home?
Yes, I use a kit.
That's from our audience. Oh, look,
I use a kit from a company called Hamama. And I'm not sponsored by them. They don't give me free stuff or anything like that. My brother, who takes care of my mom, turned me onto this. He has these sprouts next to the sink, and he puts them on his avocado toast and on her avocado toast every day. And so these grow in about 7 days. So I have 2 going all the time. But they're delicious. They're really easy. It's actually kind of foolproof.
how do you spell that?
Hamama. So I'm going to go ahead and add a cup of water. I'm going to add a pinch of salt. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this into cream. Do you want me to mute myself again?
No.
It's kind of loud.
Okay. I'm going to ask Annie next about MCT oil that one of our audience members asked us about. I've actually made that cashew cream with a recipe Annie makes, the roasted broccoli quesadillas, and they are amazing. And again, it doesn't take you a day in the kitchen, really.
Okay. And that was about a minute. And if it's too thick, you just add a little bit more water. If it's too thin, then it'll still be fine. It'll just be a little bit thinner. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and pour this in here. It's just like cream. I use this as my cream. I have a coffee creamer that I make for my husband, who has not been able to give up cream in his coffee. So I have a special coffee creamer that I use. I use this as my mayonnaise. I might stir some pesto into it and make it a sandwich spread. I'm making a lasagna with it now that I've kind of been testing these last couple of weeks, and hopefully I'll share that with you all soon. But it's a mushroom lasagna with spinach and leeks. Instead of using cheese or any kind of bechamel sauce, I use cashew cream. I'm going to mix in some of our preserved lemons with that to make it a lemony cashew cream lasagna. This keeps in the refrigerator for 4 to 7 days, and the sky's the limit. It's just more a matter of stop reaching for mayonnaise, stop reaching for heavy cream, stop reaching for all these dairy products, because they're really not good for us in the long run. They have the wrong fat content, they have a lot of additives, and they often have added sugars too. So that's how I do the cashew cream. I think we have time for one more recipe, right?
Sure.
Are we doing
Let's do the harissa. The harissa, that's my favorite.
you want to do the harissa? Okay.
The harissa yogurt sauce I've made actually probably about 4 times. It's the easiest thing to make if you're having a few people over for dinner or just an easy dinner. The grilled chicken and asparagus with a harissa yogurt, and that has lemons in it. It's delicious.
Yes. So this is just something when I was writing the cookbook, I was trying to make things as easy as possible for people, because that's just one of my goals. I know you don't have a lot of time to cook. I often don't have a lot of time to cook either. Sometimes it's amazing like how quickly we try to get dinner on the table. So what I was messing around with was, what if you wanted to grill some food, but also have a sauce to put on the side after? So this is a sauce that does double duty. It can marinate your food. Say you can marinate shrimp or chicken or tofu or something of that sort. But it can also provide a nice sauce afterwards. Of course, you split it into 2 portions. And you can use a plant-based yogurt like this one. I really like this brand, Kite Hill, which is made out of cashews. And it's a really good, high quality company. They don't put a lot of additives into their food, and it's absolutely delicious. If you're feeding this to someone who doesn't like plant-based dairy products, they probably would never even know unless you told them. I also sometimes use just whole milk yogurt, and I use full fat yogurt because in my family we don't have any problems with our cholesterol. But if you're battling with like a high LDL cholesterol, you probably want to do low fat dairy products. Okay, but I do full fat because it gives me a little bit of fat in my diet, which I probably could use. But I do love this cashew yogurt a lot. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice.
You know, my son was having stomach issues, and we cut all dairy out, and it's amazing. It went away. And you can find substitutes for dairy products. You really can. A good friend of mine is lactose intolerant, and man, she cooks up a storm with, you know, non-dairy cheeses and non-dairy everything, you know. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm adding some harissa. I don't know if you can find this at your grocery store, but it's a Tunisian spice paste that is absolutely delicious. And also, this is one of those, you know, foods that I think of them as minimally processed foods that can be real flavor bombs in your cooking. We want to stay away from ultra processed food, which we know is like junk food and boxed food. But there's a lot of like really good condiments that you can use to make your food delicious. This is another brand that I picked up at Trader Joe's. You have one of those near you. If you can't find harissa paste, you can use another spice paste like this is sambal olek, which you can find in almost every grocery store in America. And it's quite spicy, so don't use quite as much. And then another one I really like is, these are just peppers and vinegar. These are Calabrian peppers. And it's Divina. It's like the olive people. So you find these near the olive section in the grocery store. And peppers are so good for you. They have all these brain health nutrients like capsaicins and lots of vitamin C that I consider them like kind of brain health superstars. But we're just going to do a little bit of harissa for this. And there you have it. This is our harissa yogurt sauce. So if I was grilling chicken, I would take half of this sauce and I would marinate it. Now, when you marinate your food before you grill it, it really reduces the number of inflammatory particles that created. It kind of like protects the food from the heat, the way I like to think of it. It's a barrier between the meat and the flame. So if I grill, I always marinate, and it's a really, really good trick. Also, it makes the food more delicious, right? Always has to be delicious.
And just,
and then the other half,
fresh lemon, olive oil, salt, and peppers, and marinate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Easy. You can even add some herbs in there if you like. So this harissa yogurt sauce, it's going to keep, you know, probably for a week in my refrigerator. It's not going to last that long because I find all sorts of uses for it. And you can make it more spicy if you want. You can use it, like if you want a quick snack, you can cut up some carrots, get some sugar snap peas, some celery sticks, and use it as a dipping sauce for crudité. You can use it as a dipping sauce for the artichokes we're going to make in the next course. There's just so many things you can do with it. And so that's how easy that is.
It's delicious. I put it on some whole grain toast the other day and it was wonderful. I have a couple of questions here from the audience. One was the
Sure.
cashew cream. Can I mix my tuna salad with that, or is that weird?
No, I think that's a brilliant idea. I would love for you to do that. I'm working on, I don't really eat tuna salad, but I have a sardine salad that's really similar that I like. But I'm working on a chickpea salad, sort of like a riff on chicken salad that's curry flavored. And I'm going to be using my lemon cashew cream for that. So it's a wonderful substitute for any time you would use mayonnaise. And in your homework, which thank you, because that you just reminded me that I wanted to tell you about the homework. One of your items I want you to maybe think about working on is swapping out dairy, and just try to find a dairy replacement that you like. So that's where it is here. Swap out your mayonnaise. You can buy better mayonnaise at the grocery store if it's made with avocado oil or olive oil, or you can just make it like I just showed you, and it's going to be even better for you, obviously. You can swap out butter. It's better to use grass-fed butter than conventional butter, because grass-fed butter also has omega-3 fatty acids that are beneficial, but it's even better to use extra virgin olive oil in your cooking instead of butter. I almost never cook with butter anymore. I mean, around the holidays, I'll go buy some, and gosh, I used to remember just always having butter on hand and my family consuming a lot of it. But now it's sort of a special occasion food in our house. Your second homework is to clean out your pantry. We haven't talked about cooking oils. It's rather a big topic, but I'd like to make it really easy for you. You mostly want to cook with extra virgin olive oil for temperatures under 400 degrees. And above that, I would like you to use an oil that has a higher smoke point, something like avocado oil or pecan oil or another kind of nut oil. Okay, I'm not a big fan of coconut oil. It's very high in saturated fat. It's marketed as a brain health food, but it is not. There's actually studies that show that it causes detrimental effects to your blood cholesterol that can increase your risk of heart disease and brain disease. So coconut oil is fine for, like, tiny doses if you want to flavor something, but it's not like this health food that I would want you to use every day. Absolutely. So I have some ideas for you in terms of doing your pantry clean out. That's probably one of the most important things people can do when they're trying to eat more brain healthy, is to get rid of the ingredients around the house that are just not good for you, that you reach for them because they're there, but you really should not even be giving them to the food pantry, is my opinion. And then the third thing is I want you to eat a fermented food every day. Your lemons aren't going to be ready yet, but in 3 weeks they will be ready to use. You could pop a little bit of lemon slice on your fish, or into your cashew cream. So until then, find something that you like. Find a yogurt that you really like. It can be a plant-based yogurt too. Find a fermented vegetable that you like kimchi or, say, pickled carrots. But the key is you have to find these in the grocery section of the store, not on the shelf. If they're on the shelf, they've been pasteurized to be shelf stable, and they don't have the same beneficial gut bugs. Okay, so you want to go
pickled onions? I make pickled onions all the time, and it's so easy to make those. Apple cider vinegar, red pepper flakes, a little bit of salt, red onion, and hot water.
Absolutely, I'm a big fan. Apple cider vinegar is a fermented food, and there are definitely some health benefits to including vinegar in your meals or cooking with it. I'm a big fan of it as a marinade. It's very traditional in Mediterranean and Asian cultures to use vinegar. And there's some studies that show that it actually keeps you from absorbing so much blood sugar from a meal. So there's some real benefits to apple cider vinegar. But I'm not recommending that you drink it, like some people will say. It's not good for your teeth enamel. It's not good for the the bacteria in your stomach. But you can cook with it, and it's a-okay.
And then someone was asking in the Q&A about whole grain breads and things like that. Is it necessary we make them, or are they available just to purchase, in your opinion?
Oh, no, you can purchase that, but you have to be pretty strategic when you read the label, because when you go to the bread section of the grocery store, everything looks like it's good for you, right? Except for the obvious, Wonder Bread and white breads. But all of those brown breads and healthy breads, they're marketed for you to buy them. And they might say lots of healthy things on the label, but you just ignore everything it says on the package. and you turn the bread over and you look at the nutrition label. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that there's minimal amount of added sugar. Added sugar is a separate line now that has been created beginning of this year by the FDA. So you can see exactly how much added sugar. And you want to make sure that it has a decent amount of fiber. And the ratio of fiber to carbohydrates should be 5:1. That's how you know you've got good bread.
And then there's other questions. I'm going to do one last one. And then I encourage everybody to respond to the email you're going to get. If you have additional questions, we'll add that in for the presentation on September 8th. But does MCT oil help prevent cognitive factors in the brain?
There's
I don't
no
know what MCT oil is.
data. There's no data that says that it's preventive for Alzheimer's disease. It's interesting in scientific trials that they're using MCTs because someone who has Alzheimer's can no longer respond to glucose. So glucose is the breakdown product from sugars that we eat and carbohydrates, and sugar or glucose is our primary source of fuel for the brain. The brain thrives on sugar. But once your brain has developed Alzheimer's, it no longer recognizes sugar. And so it has that's what slows down the thinking and the mentation and the memory problems. It's part of the problem. So in research protocols, they're looking at giving Alzheimer's patients ketones, ketone bodies like MCT, which are certain types of fatty acids that are non-glucose forms of energy. Okay. And because an Alzheimer's brain is not responding to its primary form of energy, there's been some really promising studies, mostly anecdotal, meaning a handful of series is just kind of interesting, but not proven yet, showing that it might help people with their symptoms, which is very, very encouraging. Maybe someone with Alzheimer's disease in the future will be on some sort of a ketogenic diet, not a full-on one because it's nutrient poor in general, but maybe some sort of that. But whether you give MCTs to someone who doesn't have Alzheimer's, almost everyone in the field agrees that that's not a good idea, even though it's marketed to be super good for your brain.
So it's not a preventive measure. It's more like when you have it as a solution.
No, I mean, I'm keeping a close eye on the research. As soon as I find a study that, shows that, and I think it's going to be really beneficial for all of you, I will shout it from the rooftops, but I haven't seen a study that makes me want to recommend it.
So I want to, first of all, thank you, Annie. I feel like I've known you forever and it just gets better and better. And I've never been able to actually cook like this with you before. So I want to thank you for having faith in me. But I also want to thank the audience. And I really want to thank Kensington Senior Living, who produces these events for our community, educational events, feel-good events, and great events like this. And Annie, if you would share with the audience a little bit about September 8th.
Oh, September 8th. Yes. We're going to come back here in the kitchen. I'll have someone watch my dogs next time.
Oh, you don't?
They haven't been so great. And we're going to be making just a really easy fall menu. And remember I told you those 5 foods that I want you to eat every day? Well, we're going to hit a lot of those food groups. We're also going to use some of the things that we made today, like the cashew cream. We didn't get to make the walnut parm, but it's super easy, and I can show you how to make that when we do the zucchini noodles. So we're going to do a crispy artichokes appetizer, where I'm going to have you just take some artichokes from a can, which is actually a really good minimally processed food, put them in the oven, get them nice and crispy, and then we're going to have a dipping sauce made with our preserved lemons. Or you could just use, if your lemons aren't ready, you can just use lemon rind or lemon juice or something. And then we're going to have that as our appetizer. I'm going to make one of my favorite soups. It's a mushroom soup with delicata squash and farro. Farro is one of my favorite whole grains. And I really think a lot of people are afraid to cook it. So cooking in a soup is a wonderful way to do it and not have to worry about getting it right. And then we're going to have an easy pasta dish, but instead of pasta, we're going to make zucchini noodles. And I can show you how to do that. It's really easy. You do need a spiralizer, but if you don't want to buy one or you don't have one, you can just buy zucchini noodles at the grocery store. I'm going to show you how I like to cook shrimp in olive oil. Remember I told you I don't like to heat up the oil too much, like really gentle cooking, because shrimp has lots of benefits in terms of brain friendly fats, and I don't want them to be destroyed. So I'm going to show you how I do that. We're going to use the walnut parm instead of cheese. Oh, and then we're going to make dessert, of course. We're going to make a wild blueberry polenta crisp with yet another riff on our cashew cream with vanilla and maple syrup.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Annie. And thank you. I'm sorry, Steve, you couldn't join us today. Thank you, Alex and Val. I'm sure your dinner tonight was amazing. And thank you to Kensington Senior Living and Brain Health Kitchen. And we'll see you September 8th.
Thank you for having me. Good to see everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.